his hands to cover himself as a sign of modesty. So that's interesting. So if this person just died normally, for one, he should be clothed. And two, you're right, normally they would cross the hands above the chest. The fact that it wasn't shows that it was a quick burial. It was done in a hurry, in other words. An interesting thing about the back of the image are all of these marks that go all the way down to the very calves of the image. These are striped marks that implies that there were, and they come from two different directions. It implies that this person was whipped or scourged from two different directions. There are over 120 lash marks counted on the shroud. Over 120 lash marks. From the base of the neck all the way down to the calves. So this was a very brutal torture, whoever this person is. There's also an interesting wound that's on the side. I believe it is over, I forget, I can't tell in this image. It's either over here or over here. I think it's actually over here. No. I believe that's where it is. That shows some sort of laceration in the chest in which blood came out and coagulated around here. You can also see trails of blood along the arms, which indicate how if someone were up like this, it trickled down like this, in a way, which implies that this person was crucified and what angle his arms were at the time of death, because you can trace the trail of blood down the arms. There are also wounds on the shoulders in the back, which implies that there was something placed on the back of his shoulders, a beam of some kind. And this somewhat corresponds to the knees, in which it shows that there were contusions that occurred along the knees, implying that whatever was on his back, or at some point this person made contact with the ground. Okay. So we actually know a lot about the person who died, of whom this image is. Now the question is this Jesus Christ? Everything about it seems to describe what happens in the Gospels. And it's a little bit different also. Like I said, it's not a normal crown of thorns like we've seen. The wound isn't through the palm, it's through the wrist. Okay?
Well, putting the crown on would have lacerated the top too of his head. Just with these huge thorns, you put it on, you go from here to here, and the thorns go into your head.
Not necessarily. If you look at the traditional pictures, it's just this little circlet that would go around like this.
No, but I mean from the shroud.
Yes.
When you have the blood all around there, you would think it could be either like a bush or it could be a circlet, but with the long thorns, it would have pierced the top of his head as they put it down and pushed it down.
It's possible.
Yeah.
It doesn't quite fit with what is in the image of the shroud, though, which again makes it very curious. It doesn't fit our traditional pictures and images of Jesus' death as we know it. Also, you notice even in our crucifixes, Jesus has a loincloth on, and that's for modesty.
Yeah.
You know, we don't want pictures, you know, around him. You know, that just is, you know, we can't do that. But if the shroud is what it is, if it is the burial cloth of Christ, it implies that when they stripped him, like our 11th station of the cross, they stripped him bare as a formal act, another act of humiliation to him. And the shroud bears witness to that. The man on the shroud is nude. And again, that would have been an immodest thing to do in the Middle Ages. Are you kidding? The early popes had a lot of the statuary in St. Peter's reconfigured so that they would, because they were Greek statues that were nudes, and they felt that that was immodest. So they re-sculpted them with clothing on in some manner, you know, out of modesty. It was a sense of that. So if this was again a medieval forger, he went completely against all customs. You know, where's the loincloth around Jesus that you would normally expect, you know, just out of modesty's sake? It's not there. And it's like that would be considered very out of vogue for something like that. And almost, quite honestly, to a lot of people, offensive. The fact that it is implies that if this is a forgery, someone went through a lot of trouble to break custom, left and right, in creating a forgery that people wouldn't recognize.
Where did they find it first?
The first record of the Shroud's display comes from the 1400s, when it was first in public display. I may be off on my dates.
The 13th something.
Yes.
Where was it found? I mean, not just displayed, but where was it found?
Well, that's just it. There are no records before that as to where it was located. There is speculation as to where it came from. And that requires you to go into the Shroud's history. That is something I say for Easter, really. I bring in a video that shows the history of where the image on the shroud and where it possibly could have come from and how it connects to the burial cloth of Christ. Now, I find it extraordinary that the shroud is still in existence after all this time. Even if it was a medieval forgery, for it to survive a fire 200 or 300 years after its creation is extraordinary in of itself. The irony is that I believe it was what, in 2002, there was another fire it survived in Turin. The cathedral in which it was housed was set on fire. And again, the shroud was in a reliquary in the church and a fire broke out. Fortunately, they saved it and put out the fire. But this is like the second time it's been tried to be destroyed by fire, and it hasn't.
Well, it wouldn't be a forgery, but the question is it Jesus? That's the only real question, because obviously somebody was in that shroud that, you know, left that image.
Well, the whole thing is, again, the real big question is, forget if it's Jesus, how did this image get on there? If it's not painted on, and it's more like a burn mark, well, how do you burn an image onto a shroud? So the predominant theory right now in secular world is what's called the heated image theory. It's the idea that this forger was asked by someone in the church to create a fake relic so that you can, you know, hawk money from the poor unsuspecting parishioners. And so instead of painting it on, they asked for a statue to be made of Jesus and heated it up like an iron and then put this cloth on it, and as a result, it burns the image on.
There was a blood type.
And the blood that they put on there for added effect and stuff like this, and boom, you have an instant relic of the Passion of Christ, right? And everyone's going to be faked out, and you're going to get lots of money flowing into the church. This is the thinking in the secular world, that this is a fake relic like everything else, and it's just used to hoodwink poor, you know, gullible sheep in the church who can't think beyond themselves and just accept everything by faith. There's only one major problem with that theory. They tried to do this. They got an image, they heated it up, and they put a cloth on it to see what would happen. You know what happened? It turns out all distorted. It either burns the cloth because it's too hot, or it's not hot enough and you don't get any image at all, or if you do, it's all misproportioned. because they fold the cloth over the image to get a picture of the face, and then when you undo it, it all flattens out. So it's like, okay, so you have to have it at just the right temperature and in just the right way so that you don't burn the cloth to ashes, and B, you get a picture that people can at least see that's not all distorted. By the way, did I mention that the shroud has photographic qualities?
What is that?
That means that when people saw the shroud like this, they didn't think anything of it until they took a photographic negative of it. Now, I don't know if you know this or not, but there were no cameras in the Middle Ages. Photography really wasn't invented until the mid-19th century. And the shroud was first photographed in 1898 during one of the displays. And when the photographic negatives were analyzed, before they turned them into positive pictures, they saw this. And for the first time, we realized that the image on the shroud is a photographic negative. That this is the positive image. The negative is the positive. Right? So what we're looking at on the shroud is a photographic negative. As if someone put the shroud in a camera, turned it on, and took the real picture away and left us the negatives. That's what it's like. And the first time we realized that was 1898. So whoever this medieval forger was, he left us a photographic negative of his work. See, it becomes less likely that this is some medieval forgery when you look at all of this evidence. It becomes more easier to believe that it's Jesus Christ and his resurrected body that burned the image onto the shroud than these crazy ideas of heated images and photographs that are negative, that a medieval person thought this up. Someone from the Middle Ages thought and cooked up this plot and cooked up this relic, right?
No, I'm convinced.
See? It's just silly. It really is silly. Here's another bit to put into your hat and smoke it. We cannot reproduce this today. We cannot reproduce this today. With all of our space-age technology, our lasers, our computers, we cannot duplicate this today. Do you understand that? We cannot duplicate this today. That's why it constantly is still under scientific scrutiny, because we don't know how it was made. Because, are you ready for some more?
Yes.
Well, it has this photographic negative quality to it, right?
Right.
If you take a picture, like an old-fashioned picture, you know, where you had a camera and film, not like on your cell phone. Took an old-fashioned picture, right? And you have it on paper, right? You remember those things we used to call photographs?
Yes.
I know you young people have no idea what I'm talking about, but we used to have these things in paper form. They were called photos. Right? Go look it up in your history books. There were these photos.
Yes.
Okay? Those photos have no third-dimensional qualities to them. If you analyze them with a computer, all you get are different degrees of light and dark. Everything is distorted when analyzed that way. Because it's just a flat picture. It's a picture of something. Okay? So, when you analyze the shroud, brace yourself, and analyze it the same way as you would a photograph like this photograph. If I analyze it, put it under a camera, and get a sense, does it have any third-dimensional qualities, it would say no. It's just flat. It's just shades of light and dark. When they put the image of the shroud underneath there, you know what you get? You get this third dimensional quality.
The image or the actual shroud?
Of the shroud. The image on the shroud has a third dimensional quality to it when analyzed by a computer optical reader. In other words, and it's so accurate that recently they've made an image of the shroud of this. I saw it recently and I was like, I want a copy of that. I mean, I want an image of the statue that you can develop from this image because it has this three-dimensional quality to it. So again, our medieval forger, whoever he is, created a photographic negative, and it is such a good quality that when analyzed by 21st century computer optical readers, it has a three-dimensional quality to it, which means that the light and dark qualities are in such a degree that it can be pulled out of the image. That our modern cameras can't do that. Get it? So the next time somebody says, it's a forgery. Carbon-14 testing said it was made in the 12th century. End of story. I'm done. Next. It's just another fake in the church.
You should debate somebody.
I don't need to. I mean, scientists have been doing this for years.
For the public, have you and the other person, you should have a debate. Yeah?
So, the point is, thank you. The point is that when you look at all of this evidence, you have to ask yourself, again, what is easier to believe? Medieval forger, a medieval fake, and by the way, we have no idea who this forger would be. If he is, he should be like a Michelangelo of the 12th century. Oh, but there's no one. Okay, well, we'll let that go. There's no anything like that. But it's a fake. Really? By the way, did I mention that the blood on the shroud was analyzed? Did I mention that?
Yes.
Oh, well, let me tell you. The blood on the shroud